distance in the light, vibration of a thunder.
Hello, loved ones. This is Matt Stevens, and this is the My Sober Addiction podcast. And we are happy, healthy, wealthy, and free. And loved ones, I narrowly, almost did not make an episode for this week. The reason being is it's been a crazy wild week. I really, to be completely honest, just have not had time to prepare for one, even though I do have a theme in mind. So I was thinking about making some kind of post and saying, hey, everybody that might want to be looking for an episode this week, sorry, but it's not coming. But then I thought, well, maybe I'll do like I did that one other time and release just a shorter episode, an apology, and maybe a word of encouragement. I'm like, well, that would be cool. But I do have something I wanted to talk about. I just didn't have time to do any research and create an outline. But that's okay because it's rather simple enough. So I'm like, well, let's just go for it. Let's do something short and sweet. And if we don't really get the point through all the way, well, that's fine. We'll do it next week when we pick it back up on a regular episode. I wanted to talk with you about belief loops. And a belief loop is a self-perpetuating belief system, meaning whatever we believe, we will expect. And once that does manifest in our life because of our expectation, that strengthens our belief, which strengthens our expectation, which strengthens the manifestation, which, again, it loops around again. And it has a snowball effect. Problem is in a lot of cases, in most cases, that is a negative. We have very negative beliefs, very negative expectations. And when I say we, I mean humanity as a whole. I have said many times on the YouTube channel and in the podcast that while we are members of the human collective, we occupy two realities. We occupy two trajectories. Well, we potentially occupy two trajectories. One of which is that of the human collective. We cannot escape that. We live amongst the human collective. We cannot get away from that. However, we can get away from suffering exactly their same fate. For example, the example that I've used is the neighborhood that gets ransacked by a tornado. And every house in the neighborhood is destroyed except for one. And it's like, how did that happen? How did it happen that that one house did not get destroyed? And yes, it's an analogy, although that has happened. There have been many cases of that happening where people are like, how did that happen? There was that one house that looked like it was barely even touched, but everything around it was destroyed. Well, that is a case of someone who is living amongst the collective, but is not accepting the fate of the collective, has decided, yeah, I live amongst them. However, I am my own sovereign individual. So I am going to chart my own course. Now, when I use words like the human collective, I do mean the collective of all of humanity. But it goes even further because what makes a person a person? What makes you you? And I don't just mean your physical body. I mean your actual personality. And that would be your consciousness. So they say that there's 7 billion people on planet Earth. Fine, whatever the number is. So that says that there are 7 billion individual units of consciousness that make up the human collective. Now then that, of course, does break down into other categories, such as addicts and active addiction. I'm getting there, loved one. Please stay with me. And each one of those units of consciousness at any time could break away and say, yeah, I'm not participating in that anymore. But typically, they stay together as a group, and whatever befalls the group befalls them all. And they move as one unit, act as one unit. It's as if they're one entity, when it's really, in this case, billions. But then if you get down into that collective and you start finding other subgroups, You may find some who are, in our case, people who are addicts in recovery. And they typically will have a more positive outlook on things. But then you can also find those who are still in active addiction. And if you want to talk about some perpetuating negative feedback loops, self-perpetuating at that, right? I mean, it has to be self-perpetuating to be a feedback loop. I get it. You see what I'm saying, though, dear loved one. But when we realize that expectation causes manifestation, which strengthens the belief, which then strengthens the expectation, which then strengthens the manifestation, it gets to be out of control. I don't have to convince you, dear loved one, I don't think that when we look at the state of the world and how it is right now, it ain't that great. It's just not. I'm sorry if I sound negative. There is a silver lining here, though. So, as I said, stay with me. But when we look at that, we think, oh, yeah, the world is definitely not going in a great direction. But then you realize there are lots of people, lots of individuals who are having a great life, who are charting their own course, who are bucking the system. They're not participating. They're not going to feed into that negative feedback loop. Let's say, yeah, I'm not going to feed my attention, which is your energy, right? Where attention goes, energy flows. So when you feed your attention to something, you're feeding your energy to it. Okay, I think we all know that. So when we say, I'm not going to feed my energy to that negative feedback loop anymore, what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove my single, solitary, individual, and sovereign unit of consciousness. I'm going to remove that from that collective, and now I'm going to be a collective of one. I know it doesn't really work that way, dear loved one, but you get my point. But that's when you begin creating your own reality tunnel. Some people call it a reality bubble, reality tunnel, reality bubble, whatever. So when you begin creating your own reality tunnel, that's when you go down your own path. You begin having new beliefs. Your new beliefs are, I can do this. Your new beliefs are, life is good. Your new beliefs are, I am happy, healthy, wealthy, and free, as the mantra that I begin every episode with states. When we begin that belief, that puts the expectation of being happy, healthy, wealthy, and free. And then what's reflected back to us is what? Happiness, health, wealth, and freedom, which then strengthens our belief because now we've seen it in action in our own lives. And that's when it gets really good. Now, we do that. And then we look back over at the rest of humanity. And yeah, they're still on that negative trajectory. They're still on that negative feedback loop. I mean, I hate that for them, but all I can control is this, right? And all you can control is you. So we can focus on that. But what we can hope for is, as I always say, we can hope to be an example for others, especially those of us in recovery. Because there's going to be people who we used to use with, or we used to go to groups with. It doesn't matter. There's going to be people out there who knew how far down you were, who knew how far down the spiral you were, who knew how far down your rock bottom really was. And they're going to look around and they're going to be like, what happened to so-and-so? And maybe they'll check social media, maybe they'll look at whatever. Somehow or other, they will see your example. Somehow or other, they will see you and realize, damn, it wasn't that long ago. He was right down here with us. It wasn't that long ago. She was right here in this crappy motel hustling for dope. And now look, it's got a nice place to live, got a pretty good car, doing pretty good. And things are looking better and better every single day. getting their relationships built back up, doing all these great things. You see, it's not that we have to completely abandon those people. We do, in a way, yes, have to abandon them, but we lead silently by example. But don't think that it won't be noticed, because it will be. Because when I say we have to abandon them, we don't necessarily have to abandon them, but we do have to abandon that lifestyle. And as long as they're still living that lifestyle, we can't be around it. We just can't. It's not going to do us any good. It's not going to do them any good either. But by breaking away from those collectives, breaking away from that groupthink, breaking away from thinking that it's too hard or it's impossible to get sober. You know, I used to sit and think how, well, I said this, I think, in my last episode. I used to sit and think of how much I just absolutely dreaded going through withdrawal. How much I absolutely dreaded just all of it. It's everything to do with getting sober. The withdrawal, the just being dope sick, and then being weak and tired and all of that. Just everything. It's very overwhelming, isn't it? It really is. When you're in that state and you're facing that, it's so overwhelming. But then for whatever reason, we end up doing it. And yes, it sucks. It sucks as bad as we thought it would. I'm not going to sugarcoat this. It sucked. Getting sober sucked as bad as we thought it would. But the thing is it does get better. It does get better. And whether you do it with maintenance meds, some kind of controlled detox, that's fine. In fact, I highly encourage that. I think you're going to have far more success if you do it in some kind of controlled environment. For sure, be monitored, right? I always definitely, I insist that when people are detoxing, they got to be monitored by a medical profession because things can go haywire quickly. But anyway, this isn't about that. It is about those perpetuating negative feedback loops that we keep just feeding ourselves. But then when we come over, we decide to break away and we say, yep, I'm not a part of that anymore. This is it. And we take our single individual unit of consciousness, that is you, and you take it over here. You say, now I'm on this trajectory. Now I'm happy, healthy, wealthy, and free. And the amazing thing is it won't be very long, and you will be. It'll be just a matter of months, and you'll be looking back thinking, damn, I feel pretty good. Life is good. I'm healthy. I've got a job. I've got my family back. I'm mending my relationships. Everything is on the upswing. There's going to be some times happen where you're going to hear about so-and-so, somebody you know, didn't make it. Somebody maybe overdosed and didn't make it. And that sucks. It does. Because maybe it was somebody you really had hope for, you know. Maybe it was somebody you really thought, man, I really hope that this person pulls through. I remember when I got out of rehab, my mom she picked me up and she handed me my phone, and I scrolled through like 4 months of messages that I hadn't seen. And I saw where a very close friend of mine, there was a text on there from his mother from about, I guess it was 3 months previous, that he had overdosed and didn't make it. And while it was 3 months old news at that point, it was brand new to me. So yeah, there are some setbacks emotionally. But when we look at those setbacks, such as that, as more reason to stay on the path, more reason to stay sober, more reason to continue to be that shining example for others. And you may never know if you did inspire somebody to get sober or not. They may be too proud to mention it. They may be too proud to admit it. It doesn't matter. Because at the end of the day, you are on a much better path. And the human collective on their negative trajectory, their negative feedback loop, well, yes, we have to live amongst them. But while they are just being, poo-poo, everything sucks, everything's this, whatever. We're thinking, yeah, no, I don't think I agree with that. Life is pretty good. And maybe they'll try to pull you into their thing and say, well, you know what happened in this and that and this and that. Yeah. Like, yeah, I know what happened. I know the things that are happening in the world, and I'm aware of those things. I'm monitoring them, but I'm also aware of the fact that I can't control any of that. All of that is completely out of my control. The one thing I can control, though, is this life, this trajectory, this feedback loop. And this feedback loop is a positive feedback loop. And while, yeah, it sucks, the human collective as a whole are on a negative feedback loop, well, I guess if enough of us go to the positive, we can maybe flip the script. Maybe we can be the 100th monkey. The 100th monkey is a phenomenon that really did happen in Japan, and I'm really pulling this off the top of my head here, but it was this particular type of monkey, and they were living on these different islands off the coast of Japan, and they were giving them sweet potatoes, and they were all eating these dirty sweet potatoes. But then a few of them started to learn to go to the water and wash the sweet potato off. And then once a critical mass of them learned this habit, meaning once 1% of that monkey population spread out on different islands learned this habit of washing the sweet potatoes, then they all did. Even ones that lived on different islands and had absolutely no communication. That's the amazing thing. And that's getting into collective consciousness, and that's getting into some really woo-woo stuff. I understand. It's getting into infinite awareness and some really deep metaphysical woo-woo stuff. I understand that, and I'm not going there. But it's like, look, all I can hope for is maybe that. Maybe I can be the 100th monkey that can sway the trajectory of humanity over this way. Even if it's not the case, so be it. I am on this trajectory. I am having an amazing, positive life, and I am an example for others. So anyway, loved ones, yes, I am going to get more into this in the next episode. I'm going to be more prepared. It's not going to be a ramble such as this. But hey, that's okay. I'm not exactly known to be the king of structure around here anyway, though, am I? Hey, I have been doing a lot more on YouTube, and if you wouldn't mind to check me out there, you can find me there at Matt Stevens MSA on YouTube, and subscribe to the channel. I am trying to get the subscribers up. What I really have thought about, because at first I was just doing the videos to supplement these audio podcasts. Like, well, instead of going off the deep end on the woo-woo stuff on the podcast, I will keep it more in talking about addiction and recovery. But if I want to go off on the rails on the woo-woo, that's fine. I can do that, but I will do that on the videos. And that's what I'm doing. On the videos, I am definitely going more woo-woo. I don't talk about addiction there, but it's still a lot of fun. So anyway, but now with the videos, it's becoming its own thing because I really like doing them. I like doing them as much as I like doing this podcast. In fact, it's a lot less pressure on myself because those are completely unedited. But what I would really am going for in the very near future on those is I would like to begin doing some live streams, maybe have Clive come on, maybe bring on one or two of you guys, whoever wants to come on. I'm going to go through a streaming service where I can bring guests on and we can have a discussion and maybe do some live streams on the YouTube, maybe even on X or Rumble or whatever. I don't know. That part I haven't fully checked out yet, but definitely on YouTube. And that should be a lot of fun. So check me out there. And if you have not followed me on X yet, please do so. It's also Matt Stevens MSA. I keep this very simple. I keep it very simple. It's Matt Stevens MSA pretty much everywhere. Either way, the website, mysoberaddiction.com, that is where you will be able to find pretty much everything that I have going on, that and the X page. And if you do want to contact me, I highly recommend you contact me either through the Chat with Matt feature in the description on these podcasts, or go to My Sober Addiction and contact us. That will come to my email. And if you want to set up to be a guest on the show, or if you want to make a suggestion, or whatever the case may be, that would be great. So anyway, loved ones, that's what I got. I do love you, and I will be back directly.
There is a distance in the light.